It is here, Selection Sunday. We've been waiting nearly a year for it. Going to be a great day today. Heartbreak Hotel for some schools as they don't make this year's bracket, but we've got an exciting 15 minutes or so for you. We are going to reveal the 4 number 1 seeds, who's in the bracket, where are they playing, who's out. But before we do that, Matt has some housekeeping to get through us.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I want to just talk a little bit about what's at stake. What are we playing for? What happens when your school advances in the tournament? And what does it mean for your chapter? So first of all, just like we did last year, every time your chapter advances in the tournament, they'll be entered into a lottery, essentially. And at the end of the tournament, you have a chance at winning $500 for your chapter endowment just by random draw, by simply winning and advancing as we go through the round to 64 to 32 and so on and so forth. Furthermore, the final 4 schools, just like we did last year, will all get endowment dollars put into their account just for making that final 4. So if you make the final 4 and you lose, you're going to get $1,000 put into your chapter endowment. If you make the championship game and you lose, you can get $2,000 put into your chapter endowment. And if you are hoisting the trophy at the end of the season and putting the banner up and you win that championship, you're going to get $3,000 put into your chapter's endowment. That goes above and beyond any contributions that are brought in. Also, just briefly want to say, in terms of the groups that really succeeded, the chapters that thrived last year, there's a couple keys to success. And I think we'll talk more about when we unveil the teams. Some of those schools, some of these keys are going to be really, really important for them. First and foremost, paramount, is you've got to have a coach. You got to have somebody who's really driving traffic, driving guys to go to the website and be involved and watch these videos and really get excited about the tournament, just like we do in March. So if you don't have a coach, I would highly encourage you to reach out to anybody at fraternity headquarters and say, hey, I'd love to be the coach. Whether you're an alumni association president or if you're a younger alum that just would love to get involved, let us know. Let's get you on as a coach. Communication is going to be key starting now all the way through the tournament. The more we're communicating with our alumni about the things that are going on, the more we're sharing these videos, the higher probability your chapter has, if you've made the tournament, of making a little run. Beyond that, build a little bit of a coaching team. So not just you. If you're going to be the head coach, you need assistants, right? That's the teams that are going to make it all the way through. They've got some of the best assistant coaches, in the game. Finally, make sure we're reaching out to family, friends, undergraduates. The more engagement that we can have, obviously, the better. And then there's several chapters that do make this tournament and advance through the tournament that have a matching gift. So if you're a chapter that's made the tournament and you don't have a matching gift, I'd highly encourage you to think about having somebody in the chapter sponsor a matching gift, which will encourage more donors and more dollars at the end of the day. And then finally, as we wrap up today, I'm going to encourage everybody to grab a pen. As we get to the end of this segment here, I'm going to give you some really important dates to make sure that we're all aware of when this tournament starts and what each day looks like as we go on. But until we do that, let's go back to starting to unveil the round of 64, and Gordy, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, this is what people have been waiting for. The logistics are over. We are going to start with the reveal of the 4 number 1 seeds, including the overall number 1 seed, the defending champion, Elmhurst, the number 1 seed in the Burns bracket. We also have the 3 other number 1 seeds are Murray State, Marshall, and Bowling Green, last year's runner-up. 4 number 1 seeds. Any surprises for you, Matt?
Not necessarily. When you look specifically at the successes that these groups had last year, they all deserve to be number 1 seeds. And I think what we've seen throughout the course of this season, as we've approached Founders Day, they really are the 4 best teams. They've got all those ingredients I just mentioned. They're primed to make a real serious run again.
Yep. 3 of them were in the Final 4 last year. Marshall, the Elite 8, so they all went some distance last year. Those are number 1 seeds. Let's start, if you're filling along at home, in the Manago region, which would be on the top left of the bracket. So the number 1 seed in the Manago region, Bowling Green, the defending runner-up. They are going to play Michigan State, so a MAC Big Ten matchup there. The 8-9 matchup, always one that could go either way. Albright with an in-state matchup against Penn State. The 5-12 upsets can happen in this one. You've got Central Michigan versus IU Indy. And then in the 4-13 matchup, a little maction, if you will, Toledo playing Miami of Ohio. Moving on to the bottom part of the bracket, the 6-11 matchup is Lawrence Tech playing another Tech school, Georgia Tech. So Lawrence Tech, the 6th seed, Georgia Tech, the 11th seed. The 3 seed Westminster playing the 14 seed, first time in the tournament, UC Davis. 7-10 matchup, Marietta, our Delta chapter, playing the 10 seed Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech also a first time appearance in the bracket. And then finally the 2-15 matchup, the 2 seed South Carolina, the 15 seed also making their first trip in the bracket, Sonoma State. First reactions, predictions will be later, but reactions to this bracket.
You know, this is a fun one. You got a couple different matchups here that are going to be fun to watch. You've got, first of all, you got Central Michigan versus IU Indy. So Steve Latour is really going to have a tough decision there in terms of who he's wanting to see advance. A lot of MAC activity, as you mentioned at the top of the bracket there. Bowling Green with the possible Sweet 16 matchup against Toledo, the battle for I-75. That's always a classic. And then we've got some schools here that I really think could make a real run. Georgia Tech is an 11 seed. I think potentially a little disrespectful there, but again, they've not proven themselves. It is an opportunity to really prove themselves. South Carolina is a 2. It's a tough draw for them to go up against Bowling Green. I think South Carolina is probably one of the schools that could have gotten into that 1 seed, maybe should have in their minds, but didn't do enough to get there. And so they've got a tough road to go to get through Bowling Green to make it out of the Manago bracket.
2 of your alma maters in the Manago bracket.
That'll be a tough
Bowling
one.
Green, South Carolina, possible Elite 8 matchup.
That would be fun to see.
We will find out. All right, so we are moving on now to the bottom half of the bracket, which would be the Weiser bracket. So you have the number 1 seed, Marshall, playing the 16 seed, NC State. Both places we've had Elevate before. How about that? In the 8-9 matchup, a battle of New Jersey, NJIT versus Stevens Tech. In the 5-12 matchup, Davis and Elkins, last year a 2 seed, this year a 5 seed, but they got bounced in round 1. That might explain it. They play the 12 seed Coastal Carolina. Then the 4-13 matchup, Missouri Valley versus Missouri State. On the second half of that bracket, 6-11 Ohio Wesleyan, the 6 seed, playing the 11 seed Connecticut. The 3-14 Indiana versus Salem State, a first-time appearance in the bracket for them. 7-10 is Baldwin Wallace, the 7 seed, versus Bethany, the 10 seed. And then 2-15 is Purdue, is a 2 seed. Keene State making their debut in the bracket as the 15 seed.
This is an interesting one because really when you look top to bottom, I think this might be the strongest bracket. You know, you look 1 through 6, I think any of those, really 1 through 7, any of those schools could make a real run. I mean, obviously Marshall's done it before. You got Purdue and Indiana. You know, if they rally any element of their troops, they can make the Final Four. They could win the whole thing relatively easily if they get people, you know, connected and excited about this. And then you go to the 4-5, Missouri Valley and Davis and Elkins. You know, 2 chapters that have been with, been around for a very, very long time. Again, very little work, they can make a serious run. So from really top to bottom, and then you've got, you know, even as we go into some of the double-digit seeds, you've got a UConn, a younger chapter. If they just get a couple coaches, get things going, the sky's the limit for a school like UConn. So it'll be a fun one to watch. I think this is the bracket. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the most upsets out of this bracket, just because there's so much parity.
Very possible. Also, Missouri Valley, of all the schools in the Founders Day Challenge the last 5 years, nobody's done better than Missouri Valley. So 6 times they've won something for either most donors or most dollars raised. So that could be a real sleeper there in the 4 spot. Yeah. All right, let's take a break. We've done half of the bracket. As we move over to the right side of the bracket now, we're going to start in the top right as you're filling along at home, and this would be the Ray bracket. So it is the number 1 seed, Murray State, a Final Four team last year, playing a 16 seed Clemson. The 8-9 matchup, hotly contested one. Presbyterian, the 8 seed, 9 seed, UC Berkeley. 5-12, Kansas, the 5 seed. Last year they were a 15 seed, so quite an improvement there. Playing the 12 seed, Fresno State. And then in the 4-13 matchup, Arizona State, the 4 seed, playing the 13 seed, Chico State. Moving to the second bottom part of that bracket, the 6 seed Texas A&M, their tournament debut, versus 11 seed, another first-time tournament team, Texas State. So 6 Texas A&M, 11 Texas State. As we move along, number 3 Washington playing 14 East Tennessee State. The 7 seed RPI, last year's Cinderella, an Elite 8 appearance by RPI last year, playing the 10 seed Hartwick. And then number 2 Nevada playing 15 Cal Poly.
So a couple thoughts here. I think there are some high double-digit seeds that I would anticipate making a run, possibly even at the Sweet 16. We've got Chico State going up against Arizona State. Again, two schools that it could be a great matchup, but I could potentially see Chico take that to get the win there and get past Arizona State. I think we've also got a really interesting matchup with East Tennessee versus Washington. I think those ones will be a lot closer than folks think. Washington could win handily, but I think East Tennessee is not going to go down without a fight. Texas A&M and Texas State, talk about two new chapters, lots of potential, lots of momentum. That one's going to be fun to watch. I'm certainly going to tune in for that matchup. And then we've got RPI and Hartwick. I'll call those sort of the blue bloods of Alpha Sigma Phi. I think that could be a great matchup. 7-10. I think both those schools probably feel like they probably should have been a little better seeded than the 7 and 10, especially RPI making the Elite Eight. I think the committee might have not respected them quite as much.
Perfect. And now we move on to the final bracket, the Burns, bottom right. The number 1 seed, the defending champion, Elmhurst, with potentially a tough draw here, the 16 seed, the Pi chapter at Colorado. In the 8-9 matchup, Colorado Springs, the 8 seed, versus a 9 seed Colorado State. So 3 of the 4 schools in this little sub-regional, if you will, from Colorado, Elmhurst, the exception. The 5 seed Capital playing the 12 seed Morehead State. In a 4-13 matchup, Illinois versus the 13 seed and home of the GSP, Salisbury. Bottom part of the bracket, 6 seed IIT, the 11 seed Illinois State, 3 seed Iowa State playing a 14 seed Auburn. The 7-10 matchup, UNC Charlotte versus the 10 seed Western Carolina. And as we round out the field, the 2 seed Rutgers, 15 seed back in the bracket, North Carolina. Quick glance, this region has more first-time teams in the tournament than any of the other regions.
Yeah, well, this one's going to be really, really fun. I'm especially excited to see what happens in the state of Colorado. Can one of these 3 Colorado schools knock off Elmhurst? We all know whoever's going to compete against Elmhurst is going to bring their A game because you want to beat the champion. And so can Colorado pull off that upset? If they can Colorado Springs or Colorado State? I think on any given day, they potentially could. Elmhurst obviously has a lot of power and firepower, but those will be fun matchups. I think we've also got Capital. Capital has made run after run, especially in the late 2010s and early 2020s. Now, these last few years, things have slowed down a little bit for them. Can they get back to that form? And if so, they can make a run just like any other school. Finally, I think it's interesting here. We've got UNC Charlotte potentially with a matchup against Rutgers. Really, that bottom bracket, Rutgers as a 2 seed deserves a 2 seed, but I think they've got a tough first couple rounds as a 2 going up against a brand new North Carolina chapter that I think is going to have a lot of firepower. I envision that they will be like a South Carolina 2-3 years ago, really make a run as a brand new chapter. And then you've got them potentially, if they get by that, then they've got North Carolina, Charlotte, UNC Charlotte, or Western Carolina. They both have the firepower to potentially beat Rutgers. I think that'll be an interesting matchup to watch.
Absolutely. I personally think this might be I think you mentioned the Weiser bracket being the toughest. I think this might potentially be the toughest bracket. Elmhurst is going to have to work for it to get back to the Final Four. All right, let's take a look as we look in the first round. Who might be the RPI of this year's tournament? A double-digit Cinderella, maybe getting to the Sweet 16 or beyond. Who do you like in the first round to maybe pull that off?
Well, there's a couple schools I think here really have the makings to make a run, and certainly win their first matchup. It's all going to come back to those keys to success that I mentioned earlier. I look at number 11 seed Georgia Tech. I think not only can they beat Lawrence Tech, I think they can make a real serious run. It's just a question of will they put forward the effort that's necessary? I look on the other side of the bracket. I mentioned this previously, but Kansas, you mentioned as a 12 or 15 seed last season.
Last year they were 15 seed.
Last season as a 15 seed. Now they're coming in as a 5. I think they likely get past Fresno State, but I'm not 100% sure they're going to get by Chico, which I believe Chico probably is going to beat Arizona State and then potentially beat Kansas to get into the Sweet 16. So that's a real Cinderella there I have at the 13 spot. I mentioned East Tennessee. I'm going to call the upset, East Tennessee over Washington. I think that will happen. And then I also like a UNC Charlotte to potentially make it out of the Burns bracket into the Sweet 16 and knock off Rutgers. So those are a few of the upsets that I see here in the first couple days of the tournament.
For me, in the Manago region, I really like IU Indy. IU Indy was a bubble team. Steve Latour essentially went on TV, lobbied the selection committee to get in, guaranteed a Sweet 16 appearance if they got in. So he's got to put up or shut up at this point. He guaranteed a Sweet 16. I'm going to take him at his word for it. I think they're going to upset Central Michigan. I think they're going to upset Toledo, and I think it's going to set up a great matchup versus Bowling Green and IU Indy in the Sweet 16. But Latour guaranteed it, so we'll see if he can back it up. If we move along to the Ray region, I honestly think we've never had it happen yet. A 16 seed beating a 1 seed. But something tells me Clemson might knock off Murray State. And if they do, I definitely like Clemson to get past Presbyterian or Cal Berkeley and be in the Sweet 16. I kind of am with you. I like East Tennessee State to pull the upset over number 3 Washington. I think probably the winner of A&M, Texas State probably wins that one. But I do like ETSU to get 1 win. I think in the Burns bracket, I think 2 potential upsets. The 12 seed Morehead State. I kind of like them to beat Capital. Capital has underperformed the last couple of years. If they underperform this year, Morehead is going to win that game. And then I actually like Morehead to beat Illinois in the second round. And then we move down. I am a big fan. I think North Carolina is going to be this year's Kansas, a 15 seed that does some damage. I think they could go into the Sweet 16 and potentially a little bit further. All right. Those are the upsets. Who do we like in our Final Four when we get down to the week of Founders Day? Who is it going to be on December 5th?
Well, I'm never a fan of just going chalk and having all the 1 seeds. So I couldn't go that route. There's a couple 1 seeds that I do think that have the firepower and they have all the key ingredients to make a serious run again. So I've got, coming out of the Manago bracket, I've got Bowling Green making it to the Final Four again. In the Weiser bracket, I'm going to go Purdue as the 2 seed, knocking off Marshall in the Elite 8 to make the Final Four. In the Ray bracket, I like Murray State to make it all the way through to the Final Four. And then my upset, because we had several 7 seeds last year make some serious runs, I like UNC Charlotte to come out of the Burns bracket, get into the Final Four. And from the Final Four, I like Bowling Green beating Purdue, Murray State beating the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and then finally to redeem themselves from last year's devastating last-second loss, felt like a buzzer beater. I've got the Falcons from Bowling Green State University hoisting the trophy at the end of the season as the champions.
Well, let me just say, I think, the selection committee, I think, did a much better job this year than last year. I think we're going to see fewer upsets because I think the seeding is much better than last year. So I don't like going chalk either, but I am with you until somebody can knock them off. I think Bowling Green is going to come out of that region. I think Marshall is going to come out of the region. The Weiser region, I do have them beating Purdue. I have Bowling Green beating Westminster, actually, to get to the Final Four. As we move up to the Ray bracket, I think Elmhurst, not Elmhurst, I think Nevada will emerge here. Nevada, remember, lost a heartbreaker, I believe, to Murray State last year in the tournament. So I think Nevada is going to be in the Final Four. And then I think Elmhurst, until you can beat the champs, they're the champs. I think Elmhurst in the Burns bracket. I think Nevada versus Elmhurst. I like Elmhurst. Bowling Green versus Marshall. I like Bowling Green. I think it's going to be a rematch of last year. And once again, in Northwest Ohio, there's going to be some sad folks. I think Elmhurst back-to-back will win the championship again this year. But it's going to be a great tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to recap a couple things in terms of the tournament schedule. This is where you want to jot some things down. Grab a pen. I'll give you a second here. So the tournament itself, the round of 64, kicks off Monday, November 25th. The first round is a 2-day period. So Monday the 25th through Tuesday the 26th. Those 2 days, that's the first round. So rally the troops, get coaches lined up, contact fraternity headquarters, get any assistance that you'd like. Let's get all of our ducks in a row, post in the Facebook groups, all these sorts of things, starting on the 25th. That's how you win your first round, the 25th and 26th. The round of 32 will be decided Wednesday morning on the 27th. We will know who has made the round of 32. We pick back up with the round of 32 on Monday, December 2nd. So that week of the 2nd, that's really where the tournament picks up significantly. So round of 32 begins on the 2nd, and then we will culminate everything with the championship game, those 2 final schools that make it to the big dance here on Founders Day, Friday, December 6th, where Saturday morning we will wake up and we will have a new champion or maybe a repeat champion. We shall see.
All right, we're excited. It's going to be a great tournament. We'll be here for the entire tournament, and the road to the Final Four starts now.